Lieutenant Jiro Tanaka, a submariner from Yokosuka, emerged from the infirmary at Camp Lordsburg in New Mexico and saw sunlight for the first time on the 8th of August, 1945. The infection from a wound he had sustained while escaping from the I-58 submarine sunk off the coast of Okinawa had nearly killed him. American surgeon Henry Ellis used his own limited supplies to save him. Now, pushed from behind to join the other new arrivals, Tanaka's eyes first fell on the barbed wire, then on the endless golden wheat fields beyond it. This landscape was an unimaginable expanse for a man from the narrow islands of the Pacific. The 19-year-old sailor beside him, Akira, whispered in a flat voice, "This isn't it. The real camp will be behind this display." The first systematic shock came in the laundry room. They handed over their dirty, salt-encrusted, blood-stained uniforms. In exchange, they received spotless, ironed cotton suits and new underwear, each clearly marked with a number in black ink. Tanaka's was 731. The process resembled the induction procedure for a military unit, rather than a prison. "To weaken us," grumbled an old sergeant. "A man who dresses cleanly loses his warrior spirit." However, Tanaka was astonished by the quality of the fabric. There was no cotton left in Japan. Uniforms were made from wood fiber. This was too expensive a move to be a simple tactic. Tanaka was assigned to a work crew, tasked with emptying the rubbish bins. This was his first real observation at the camp. He saw a half-eaten sandwich stuck to the mouth of a bin. White bread, thick slices of ham and orange cheese that had begun to melt were hanging out of it. It looked more valuable to him than the dinner that had not yet been served. The guard, seeing him frozen, shouted, "What are you waiting for? Throw it away!" Tanaka pushed the sandwich into the bin with the feeling of disposing of a murder weapon. That night, it was the only topic of conversation in the barracks. A group of officers concluded it with deliberate psychological torture. First give hope, then take it away. Others began to understand how a culture that viewed something so valuable as ordinary rubbish had lost the war. Meal distribution was not a ceremony, but a precise and mundane task. Tanaka's attention was drawn to the wounds on the food server's hands. Between the man's fingers were small, clean cuts and burns, the result of constantly peeling meat and vegetables. These wounds seemed like silent evidence of an abundance that had lasted not just a day, but months. He recoiled at the amount of meat placed on his plate. In his final month on Guadalcanal, there had been nothing but a handful of rice and a worm-eaten biscuit each day. According to camp records, each prisoner was served an average of 3,200 calories per day. Even in the Imperial Navy's best days, a submariner would struggle to get 2,000 calories. They ate their food not thinking of future hunger, but with the memory of the hunger they had endured in the past, with a sense of urgent duty. The American Private Miller, who was keeping watch at the top of the camp's water tank, was the only witness. During the night, he saw the young sailor Akira sneak out behind the barracks with a wooden spoon in his hand. The boy was digging the ground like an animal, then putting something in his mouth. The next morning, Miller checked that spot. The soil had been dug up at regular intervals. At the bottom of each hole, he found small, crushed and buried lumps of mashed potato. Akira was burying part of his food in the ground, perhaps as a signal, perhaps as an offering, or perhaps simply out of a survival instinct to store it for the future. Miller did not report this incident. He simply wrote in his diary, "The child has buried his food, as if planting a fruit seed. Nothing will grow here." The turning point came in a magazine in the camp's modest library, the July 1944 issue of the Kansas Farmer. Huge combine harvesters, seas of cornfields, endless conveyor belts in meat processing plants. The pictures were a more powerful argument than words. Tanaka organized a secret meeting to show the magazine to the other officers. "This could be propaganda," said one. "Yes," replied Tanaka, "but what they put on our plates every day is proof that these pictures could be real. These images, however, tell the story of how they managed to fill those plates." From that moment on, the questioning gradually faded, giving way to a deep, sorrowful mathematical acceptance. In October, the camp's butter ration was doubled due to surplus production at a local dairy. For the Japanese, this was the final sign that the system was collapsing. "The stocks are running out. They're distributing the last of it." The old sergeant, as leader of the barracks, suggested declaring a food strike. However, Tanaka objected this time. "Perhaps they just have a surplus." The butter continued to arrive for weeks. The strike did not happen. One evening, Tanaka left some of the butter he had spread on his bread on his plate. Akira, who was watching him, blinked in surprise. This small gesture was a silent declaration of faith. In the spring of 1946, the first letters began arriving from Japan. Tanaka's sister had written, "Our daily ration is 800 calories. Mum is boiling the weeds from the garden. Father fell off his bicycle on his way to work and couldn't stand up." As I read this letter, my lunch plate held a 500-gram beefsteak and buttered potatoes. Guilt felt like physical pain. The next day, a group of prisoners refused their meals in solidarity. Camp Commander Colonel Shaw sternly warned them, "Starving yourselves won't feed Tokyo. I make the rules here, not you." The strike ended after 36 hours, succumbing to the rebellion of their digestive systems and the weight of reality. In September 1947, when Tanaka landed in Yokohama, he had gained 11 kilograms. His old uniform no longer fit him. The house was in ruins. The first evening meal consisted of watery rice and a few turnip leaves. His mother apologized repeatedly for the meager fare. Tanaka put a mouthful in his mouth, and without realizing it, murmured the one English sentence he knew from Wyoming. "It is enough." His mother did not understand. That night, he wrote about the American camp for the last time in his diary. "They took better care of us than we did of ourselves. That's what lost the war. Victory belongs not to those who can eat the most, but to those who can feed the most." Tanaka spent the rest of his life as a farmer. He learned agriculture with the seriousness of a battlefield. At every harvest, he made it a habit to leave a portion of the crop in the ground, as a symbol of creating a surplus to be shared. The young sailor Akira never fully recovered. The only war story he told his grandchildren was about potatoes buried in the ground and a sandwich found in the rubbish. Camp Lordsburg was closed in 1948. The only remnant was a cotton shirt displayed in a local museum, bearing the inscription 731. The label read, "Sometimes the greatest victory lies in not leaving your enemy hungry."